Yo, 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 what's up, y'all? It's your boy Big Mike in the building. Swish for real. How you living? I got my co-host with me, Boogie Boogie Bob. Boogie, how's the things on your side of the planet, man?
Oh, they're going good. They're going good. I just can't wait for the Mavs to get another young stud to go with Cooper Flag. Ready to rock and roll. See who they trade, who they cut. What kind of draft day moves they make. So, going to be a party.
Yeah, we're gonna keep our eyes open for that, man. Be sure to just look out for the Mavs this season, man, because I think it's gonna be a turnaround season for sure. Depending on the coach, and we talked about it off camera. Tiago Splitter, it seems like he'd probably be the best candidate, but that's just something we got to see. And from the Basketball Association, we're gonna say national. There's so many things we can say about Eric Folk, man. He's been a great guy coming on, hanging out with us, man. Eric Folk, man, how you living, man?
I am living, and just as excited as you to see what the Mavs do with the pick, and also to see who ends up being the head coach. So,
No doubt. Appreciate you coming on, man.
mhm.
Tell the people a little bit about you, man, about the program that you're running with Marty, and give them a little bit of background about you, man.
Yeah, sure. So, been in the basketball world since I was a kid, man. I've been playing basketball in some capacity up through high school, of course, a little bit in college. Coming out of college, it was just more like rec leagues and things like that. But just always been around the game, been in the coaching space as well. And my youngest daughter, actually picked up basketball, and so of course through her journey, of course, stayed in touch with the game and making sure that, of course, that she was developed the way that she needed to be. And so just love the game, man. And actually, I still play to this day, 56. And I keep telling my daughters that they're going to have to drag me off the court. I just
Nice.
love the game. So, of course, we got a big game tonight, game two with San Antonio and New York. Looking forward to that as well. So just again, just really love the game in every capacity, from the business side of it all the way down to the player side. So
Well,
Right.
they
And
have
so,
wheelchair basketball. So, if you ever get to the point you can't run up and down the court, you can still shoot from a chair.
I would probably try it. I'm that type of person.
and also, I just want you to give them a little bit about the Next Level Basketball Academy too.
Yeah. Yeah. So Next Level Basketball Academy, of course, is started by Mahadi Ifil, and man, it's just been growing ever since. I believe it was started last year. I believe it was. I came on as a board member, but I do, of course, try to assist as much as possible whenever there's any gaps, coaching, so on and so forth. And man, I'm just really, really impressed at the way the academy is growing. Every time I do get to attend one of the practices, kids everywhere. But what I do like about it also is that there's a bunch of coaches out there as well, making sure that those kids are developed and ready for the next level, whatever their goals are. So it's just a great opportunity for kids. So just want to put that plug out there. If any kids are listening and looking for an academy to get with to grow their skills, I would definitely say Next Level Academy is definitely where you want to be.
Absolutely. And we're at the most of the games or the practices are for Next Level.
Yeah. So more up in the North Dallas area. So right now, I want to say Frisco, Little Elm area. But I do know that there are opportunities that we're kind of looking at that to expand the academy out beyond those borders. So just be on the lookout. We do a lot of advertising and getting out with the community. So if we do expand beyond those borders, of course, we will definitely be doing that same thing, getting that word out there just to let everyone know that we're coming. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking on the subject of youth basketball, we talked about this last year, and I remember Mark Cuban making a comment stating that the kids in Europe are way more developed and have more an ability to play a more solid basketball than the American kids, and where the American kids are more flash and dash. What and this is for you, Eric. What can make the US AAU basketball better than Europe? What do we need to do as citizens of the United States who love basketball and in the AAU circuit? What can we do to make our programs better than Europe's program? Because right now, I think we're falling behind for our kids.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that's a great question, Mike. There's not a lack of talent in the U.S. at all. These kids are extremely talented. What I notice is maybe there's a imbalance, and what I mean by that is that the kids in Europe right now, they focus solely, not solely, but heavily on training, right? And I think that's where we lack. So I am the t- I'm under the thought that if we can, especially when we go into AAU seasons, figure out a balance, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with the tournaments that we're having, the games, because I don't think that any sort of training can mimic a game type situation, right? So I really think the training needs to be there. And I hear some people say, no, forget all that and just focus on training. And I also hear the opposite. But I really feel like it should be a balance, right? So, for example, there's ultimately, I want to say maybe 8 to 10 tournaments that these kids attend. I think if you cut that down by 4 to maybe 4,
Is
max
this
5.
for the whole summer?
Yes, yeah, for the AAU season. Yes, yep, yep.
Gotcha.
So if you cut that down, and that's besides any of the other, game type situations the coaches put them in. But I think if you cut that down and really have that balance to where you really focus on that training, but give them the opportunity to, um, in game type situations, see if those things that you're actually working on, you're actually producing those in a game. I think that would be the balance that we would have, and will put us in that I guess in a strong category. I still think we're better than the European players. I do think they're strong, but I do think that if we can have that balance, that our kids would excel.
What will be the most noticeable difference? Because when I look at what you get in Europe, it's kind of like the soccer league, because you start at a very low level, but you stay with the same program throughout your journey through the pro level. Because the pro level start out kind of like if basketball had AAU teams, and like say the Mavericks had an AAU team. It's kind of like what the soccer team does over there in Europe. They have a small group of kids that go through their whole program until they get to the pro level, and all
Mhm.
that's ran by one team basically. So
Mhm.
I think what they're doing is that's the difference I see. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
they're having the kids training basically just they run their own teams. They maybe have 4 or 5 teams in that one program, and they all kind of run against each other and learn
Mhm.
how to play the game as a team more so than what we do here. So having that
Mhm.
program that they have from the tykes all the way to the pro, it gives them that kind of advantage. What are your thoughts on seeing something like that? Could that work in the United States?
Yeah, so excellent point, Mike. So let me just kind of recap to make sure I understand what you're saying. So you see the individuals basically get on a team in the Europe leagues and stay on those teams as they progress up to, let's
The
say,
pro
college
level.
level. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah,
And,
well, there's a lot of pro teams that fund all the way down to the type level. You know what I mean?
got it.
So that's
Got
what
it.
they stay with the
Yeah.
same pro, kind of like what Luca did before he went
Mhm.
on to be pro and went on to Spain, I believe. Wasn't it Spain, Bob,
Yeah.
that he went to? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So great. Again, great point. Here's the challenge that I see for the kids here as it relates to that is there's so many teams. They're just popping out of nowhere, and these teams now, these coaches. I mean, it's amazing how they will go pluck a kid from another team. Oh, we need a big. Let's walk around the tournament just to see if we can find a big one that's maybe not getting the playing time or looks kind of disgruntled or whatnot. So that in itself, I think, lends to the kid's not doing exactly what you're saying, right? Because again, there's just so many teams, so many options. However, I will say that what and this is just my personal feelings, is that you have to find the best situation for your kid. Like, and I'm saying that from a personal standpoint. For when my daughter, she stopped playing now, but when she did play, it was making sure that she was on a team that she would actually get the playing time to work on those things that she worked on in practice, but also in the bigger tournaments, where the live tournaments, where she can actually get that visibility from the coaches that were there to watching the games, right? So making sure that your kid or your whatever is getting that right playing time, or basically in that right situation, so that they can produce and get the visibility that they deserve. um, I think is why, again, we do see those coaches going around there and the kids jumping on those opportunities when those coaches are approaching them, saying, hey, we need it big, and promising them, XYZ. And the parent, of course, is involved, and the parent is like, oh, yeah, let's take my daughter over there. And so you see all this movement going on where they don't do those types of things that you're mentioning, Mike.
Yeah, because I think just having them on a specific team through the duration of their journey through basketball would probably be beneficial for a lot of kids, because they learn how to play team ball and learn how to be
Yeah.
responsible for your teammates, basically.
Yeah.
Bob, what can we do as far as USAA basketball to make ourselves better than what's going on in Europe? Because I know we discussed this many times, and
Yeah,
I don't know what we can. Yeah.
you and I, yeah, we've done a couple podcasts on it, but I want to tag on to something Earl had mentioned in your question. It was either Plano or Allen that won the 6A basketball championship a couple years ago, when all the starters had played together since they were in the 8th grade. And they weren't the most athletic, they weren't the biggest, but they had played together since they were kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the first time like Plano won the football championship, and they asked, I think the coach was Kimbrough, they asked him what his secret was. He said it wasn't finding the best talent, it was having all the junior highs, middle schools that fed into the high school run the exact same system that the high school ran. So by the
Mm.
time they got to high school, they were already familiar with the plays, and they were familiar with the coaching style. They were familiar with it. And so they had a lot of success because they had that sort of program you talk about in Europe, where you've got the same structure at every level. As you move up, it's the same structure as you move up, it's the same structure as you move up. And so even though the coaching changes and the talent they face is different, they've got that synergy. And I mean, you know this, when they always talk about chemistry in basketball, but when you got synergy between the players, uh, especially when when your teammate where he's going to be, and you don't even have to look, and you can throw the pass over there. But the kids that won that 6A a few years ago, that they played together since they were in 8th grade. So that's a tremendous thing.
Mm-hmm.
I actually wrote down two things. I'd like to see Earl's opinion on this.
Mm-hmm.
I
Eric.
don't, Eric. Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I'll just call you E.
Hey, that's what they call me.
When Big Mike and I coached, we got one practice a week, 2 hours. And you spent the first hour of that 2 hours on skill, and then 1 hour. But you didn't get to spend much time on scrimmaging or schemes or circumstance or teaching them the game. And so for coaches that have a lot of that knowledge, it's like we're not able to, you don't have the time to pass on the basketball knowledge because you're so focused on getting them in shape and teach them how to dribble. So I'd like your opinion on this, not because your focus is on basketball IQ.
Yes.
situational awareness. And it seems like, whether it's AAU or rec league or all that, that the coaches don't have enough time to focus on basketball IQ. What are your thoughts?
To me, if anyone doesn't have time enough to focus on basketball IQ, I think there's a bigger problem somewhere in there, because basketball IQ, I think, is hugely important, especially with the talent that we're seeing now that these kids have. Being smart on the court, it does a couple of things. Of course, being smart I've seen just smart court players beat athletic players. I've seen it many times over and over, because they would just basically, they're disciplined. They would run their plays the way that the coach set them up. I've seen them, they know exactly where their best shots are on the court, so they're getting to their positions. So many different things play into that. I won't go into details, but so many things play into that. But I would say that from a coach that doesn't have time to actually, I guess, teach the kids basketball IQ, I think, again, that's a coaching situation to me, because it's just part of the game now, is being able to play smart. And that plays also into, if you don't mind me just kind of extended on that a little bit, basketball IQ also plays into I think the longevity, right? So especially with injuries, right? So for example, you get these players, they might be good defenders like you were, Bob, right? Great defenders, but they're leaning in with their face, right? Where you can catch an elbow or a shoulder and all of a sudden you get hurt, right? Instead of,
Or you get hit false teeth like I got.
So being able to teach the kids those types of things, I think, is extremely important. It's just part of the game. And if you're missing that, I think you really need to kind of, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but kind of check your coaching style or skills, and figure out how to incorporate that.
One of the things I did with our best player, he could play 2 years up higher than his age. Mm-hmm. And he was fast, and he would go to that. And I kept telling him over and over again, I said, eventually talent equals out, and you're not going to be able to go by somebody. Mm-hmm. So I took him to he was 8th grade when I first took him, but mm-hmm. I made him watch the game with me, and I commented on the game, and not about the players, but what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And by feeding him information during divisional round, regional round games, he started seeing the game differently. And I said, start listening to the announcers, watch a few games on TV. He goes, I watch them. I'm like, yeah, but are you watching the game, or are you watching the way they play? I said, talent always equals out. So if you don't play smarter than the other guy, you're not going to beat him.
Absolutely. Hands down. Hands down.
So I have another one for you, E. I think this is old school thinking, but I think if we work more on fundamentals such as actual footwork, passing, and team play, we're so focused on teaching them how to do an in and out dribble, or a crossover, or behind the back crossover, or a step back. And, okay, it looks fancy, or kids want to dunk if you leave them loose. I'm like, but I come from, I was in college and actually got to see Elijah play when he was in college, and he had the best footwork. And a lot of the soccer players that became basketball players have great footwork. And we would run a drill, and even though the kids were a lot faster than me, I was like, I can seal you with the way I placed my foot, and you can't get to my shot, even though you know where I'm going. And I don't think we teach the fancy stuff, but we don't teach the fundamentals like footwork and passing and team play. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, again, excellent point, Bob. Again, I think we need to take the time from a coaching standpoint and look at the types of players that we have, of course, and determine where those gaps are, right? So if it's a footwork situation, we really need to take the time to take that kid aside and say, let's work on your footwork. Why are we working on your footwork? XYZ, right? And I know that might take you away from the other ones just for a few minutes, but that truly needs to happen. And most times there's 2 or 3 coaches out there anyway. You should have a coach, a big coach, right? But also, I will say, to kind of extend on that again, and I apologize for doing that, is the other players on the court, when they realize, like, you got a big down there that you can actually dish to and they can go to work, then once you dish that ball, you can understand where you need to be, right? For example, if you're a good corner shooter, right, and the big has a good defender down there on him, the big goes down there and does his footwork, but still can't get his shot up. Guess what? He can dish it out to you in the corner and you just be prepared to shoot it, right? So I think knowing the players, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, which again I thought was a good point, Mike, is knowing how the other players play on court, right? And then doing all these little things, and I call them the little things, right? The little taking them aside, the basketball IQ, the footwork, so on and so forth, right? I think that just not getting away.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but even the simple things like a fake pass just to draw the defense,
exactly,
or a repost. Maybe the big didn't get it and he throws it back out to the guard. Well, then the defense shifts, you repost and you throw it in again. Correct. And that goes back to the basketball IQ that if you're not showing these kids, you don't have to show them more than once or twice. So they will pick it up.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's so much information out there now. I mean, you got these little short YouTube clips, where you can watch things and you can go in the garage and do it. I wish I had those when I was young, right? You go in the garage and or the driveway or whatever and practice these things. And then, of course, when you get game time activity, give it a try, right? And not be afraid to give it a try. Again, another thing that coaches should do is allow these kids just a little bit of freedom, on the court. Don't be snatching them out when they make one little mistake and they feel like, okay, I can't try anything, those types of things. But again, I just think that all is kind of encompassed in the whole basketball.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned mistake because, we had people who couldn't dribble by the end of the season. I said, I don't care if you lose the ball in practice. That's what this is for. Exactly. I'm like, keep trying. If you lose it in a game, we're not going, like, you're not going to get better until you get through that.
You got to try.
Speed. But my dad gave me that when I played hockey as a youth. He said, pick your favorite player and try to mimic them.
I like it. So who did you mimic, Bob?
It was he made the NHL, but his name was Scotty Garland.
Okay. Excellent.
But in basketball, and you're going to think this is ironic because I played shoot around and all that, but I shot from down here.
Oh.
And I didn't get my height till I got in high school, so I didn't know how to shoot from up here. And I went to University of Oklahoma, and since I couldn't lift the ball, there's a player named Terry Stotts, who's now an NBA head coach a couple times. He shot it kind of off to the side so he could get more. And then I had the pleasure of watching Wayman Tisdale a couple years later. So I was like, oh, okay, I got that bag to my trick.
I like it.
So the conversation about Europe is intriguing for the most part. And you guys did mention how some players pretty much, if you got a big, make sure that ball gets to the big. So we're gonna segue into that conversation. A European big, Wemby, man, he's been really tearing it up here lately. His first few years in the league has been something phenomenal. We haven't seen anything like this since I would say Ralph Sampson. I didn't even get to see Ralph Sampson play, but I understand that he's a great player. So conversation about Wemby. What is his ceiling? How far can he go? And we're gonna shoot it to you first, Bob. What is Wemby's ceiling with the San Antonio Spurs, and will he stay with them for the longevity of his career?
So I was in college from 77 to 84. So I actually did get to see Ralph Sampson play, not in person, but I got to watch him when they were on TV because Virginia was very good. After he graduated, then Virginia made the Final Four, but they got upset by Chaminade for those historians. Uh, and Ralph Sampson with Elijah Wan, uh, that was supposed to be the first Twin Towers. They went to the NBA Finals in '81, really early, but he was injury. He wasn't injury prone, but 7'4" people, they're big feet. That's a lot of weight coming down on it. You know, there's a lot. I mean, Greg Oden, there's a lot of them that have had foot trouble that are over 7 feet.
Yeah, and Larry
And
Bird comes to mind, but he's not a 7-footer though.
he was like 6'11", and Dirk
Yeah,
was just barely like 7 foot. So, uh, but I even when I nicknamed him VW, you know, for Victor Wembanyama, VW. Uh, I didn't know much other than what clips I pulled up. I said he reminded me of Ralph Sampson because Ralph Sampson could take it outside and shoot. He could go in. He had probably a little better post game. He didn't have as good a dribble. Uh, I think Wimby is it's going to depend on his career length for ceiling.
mm-hmm.
Uh, he's going to have injuries. That's just part of it. But you know, Robert Parrish was like 42 when he played this last game. Kareem was like 41. Those are two examples of big guys that were over 40 when they played. Uh, his ceiling to me would be multiple championships, multiple MVPs, and passing Kareem in the scoring.
Is that possible? You think so? Yeah, I guess it all depends on his health, though. If he can stay healthy for the duration of his career, and then you gotta at least play at least 10 years to even be considered one of those
Well,
players that can make
he
a
actually is not just a trainer and a physical therapist. He actually has what they call a foot doctor, and they train the muscles in his feet. And he has pregame foot workout and pregame stretching, all on the feet, so that he doesn't have those foot problems. So you know, I think that prevention certainly will help him. But when you talk about ceiling, then you know your Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, Robert Chief Parrish. That's where we're, you know. I mean, Shaq. I don't know how old Shaq was when he quit playing, but I don't think he was 40 yet.
Yeah, no, he wasn't 40 yet. No.
And his, you know, he after Miami, he slowed down quite a bit when he played in Phoenix and Cleveland. You know, but I don't think Wemby would have that problem. You know, who knows what Ralph Sampson would have turned into if he had a long career.
So, how many championships do you think Wemby will win, Bob? 5?
Yeah, he's got to have one more than Tim Duncan.
All right, I
one
got
for
you.
the
Eric,
thumb.
what is Wemby's ceiling in your opinion, Eric? What do you think he's got in his bag as far as a player? I know he's pretty good, but can he
incredible player for his height, you know, the skill set that he has. Few things that I see that maybe is just a little concerning to me. Of course, the lack of weight, and when these guys now I think are going at him. So what worries me about his longevity is being healthy. He's a thin guy, you know. However, you know, you got Chet in Oklahoma City, you know, who seems to be weathering it pretty well. So we'll see. But what I do see with Wimby is, I would say he has the footwork, but I kind of think it's a little slow. And what gets me with that is that if you got another big coming at you, I mean, you're just and they're starting to figure out. And this is kind of what I'm seeing with Cat and him playing against each other. It's almost like he's kind of figuring out what I need to do to slow Wimby down and what I need to do to score against him. Like if you noticed the other night where he started taking it, Cat started taking it to the glass, where Wemby, of course, is up there ready to block some shots, at every chance he gets. But you do a couple pump fakes and you get to that glass and you take it right to the glass, then you can get your scores on him, of course. And if you bring him out that paint, and you're able to get around them or whatnot, can he catch up to you? Those types of things. Now, even with that being said, outstanding player, man. And I do think there's a lot of upside if he stays healthy. I do think I agree with Bob that you could probably see 4 or 5 rings for Wimby. I will say I will also expand that because it's San Antonio. San Antonio is a great organization, right? And there's a lot to be said about that and the way that they put their teams together. They seem to have figured out the formulas, and they was it Robinson and then Tim and now Wimby. I mean, the bigs, they figure out who to put around them to make them successful. So I will say that that plays a part in it. So with all that being said, 4 or 5 rings. If he's healthy, he's going to be in the league till his late 30s. I do think he will stay with San Antonio again, a great organization who seem to just have this thing to where they can lock in on these good players. I think the only one was plays for the Clippers now. Doesn't come to mind, but he went to Toronto and now he's with the Clippers. You know what I'm talking about. But that organization just has that ability to just hold on to players, and I can just see him staying there for a long time.
So not to mention that San Antonio has 21 first-round picks over the next 6 years.
Is that not crazy?
And you already got possibly the 2 best perimeter defenders in Harper and Castle.
Yeah, beautiful. And another piece about that is when you look at San Antonio, the fan base in San Antonio, there's no other teams there, of course, right? So that fan base, when they're showing you that love, right? I mean, you're just this superstar. And you can even say that about Oklahoma City. I mean, you look at those 2 cities where there's the only teams there. They do a great job with, of course, getting these picks because it ultimately ends up that way for some reason. But doing the right thing with those picks and bringing in the right players.
So Eric, if let me ask you this real quick question, and I'll swing it over to you, Bob. So, in my opinion, I think the league's going to really catch up to what Wemby's doing because, as you can see with the evidence, what New York is doing to him, setting the picks on when Bronson is cutting the corner, you got a big man setting the pick, and they trying to figure them out. And I think it's more so the way that Mike Brown is coaching this team. But you think? I don't see him winning 5 championships. I see 1 or 2 because it's just the parity right now with the NBA has just been crazy. But I think they're going to catch up with him as far as trying to figure him out.
Yeah, great point. And again, I absolutely 100% agree with you. They're going to catch up with him. Now, again, beyond that, though, when you got those other good players around him where he can catch the ball in the middle, try to get to wherever he needs to be if he doesn't see it, kick it out, boom. I mean, back in the day when you had Ginobili, right? And Tim could, he would just pass it out, so on and so forth, right? So what I mean by that is it's a game of chess. Yes, they're going to figure him out, but then they're going to figure out, okay, how else can we use him and how can we use the team around him to continue that success? So I get what you're saying, but I still see about at least 4 rings out of him before he leaves this, NBA.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, of course.
And swinging it back to you, Bob, you had a statement you want to make?
Yeah. So in the play you're mentioning, they call the Gore top screen. Mm-hmm. And they don't call it a moving screen, but they call it the Gore top screen to open up the floor for another player. But what I was going to add is for E. Uh, Kevin Durant, they said was too skinny and didn't weigh enough when he came in, couldn't bench press.
True.
And he's what, 38,
True.
37,
True.
and been
No.
able to weather the storm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I,
I was
I
going. I was going to say the only difference is Kevin Durant is not down there banging with some of those bigs. He's out there shooting that little mid range, But and when you get down there with those bigs, like for example, it is Cat right now. But when Robinson comes in the game, he's a big who's going to stay in that paint and going to lean on you. And there's not. I mean, there's many centers, I guess, in the league right now who are more Robinson versus being a 3-point shooter as well, where most of them are hovering around that paint and ready to lean on you, tire you out, get you frustrated, so on and so forth. Can he weather that? Right.
Yeah, and that's the current roster. That's
Yeah.
the current roster. That's why they went and got Harrison Barnes. But they get that center from Michigan, or they get one of those other guys who can take that body punishment
Yeah.
and keep him off of Wemby.
Yeah.
When they add to the
That'd be good.
roster, that the current roster, that's an issue. But I think San Antonio. What I'm looking for is in my opinion, what made Kobe so great was he didn't have just one move or second move. He had a third, fourth, a fifth, and sometimes a sixth move.
Yeah.
No matter what you did, he had a counter for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like to see with Wimby. He knows he can get to the spot. He can hit the three. He's got a nice step back, good dribbles, good handles. Is when he adds those counter moves to the defense, how much better will he be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point, Bob. Great point.
All right, cool. Moving on to the next question. And I hate the fact that we had this guy, and he gave them an opportunity to sign him for $55 million in the summer before before the trade deadline, to be exact. And when the trade deadline passed, he passed on the offer. He's like, no, I don't want it now. I think I'm good now.
Yeah.
And who am I talking about? And we're talking about Bronson.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, Bronson, if he wins the title in New York, will he be crowned the king of New York Knicks for the forever foreseeable future?
I won't say he would be the king of New York, but I will say this, that he will definitely be up there. You have your, of course, I'm from that part of the world, but your Babe Ruth and
Aaron Judge,
yeah,
Alex Rodriguez,
yeah. So, but I do think that let me just say this, if they win this year and get back there next year, then the sky's the limit for them, for him in particular, because when you look at that game from 2 days ago, I think it was 2 days ago, he basically put that team on the back in the fourth quarter. And not only that, when you look at, he went back to the locker room. I think it was in the first quarter or second quarter. I can't remember.
Somebody ran into his knee.
Yeah. Somebody ran into his knee. Went back to the locker room, right? But he understood the stakes. He came back out. He played, right? And then he went down because I think he twisted his ankle or something like that. Got back up and played. He understood the stakes, right? And so when you look at that and kind of incorporate into, his body of work on the court, oh my gosh. I mean, and to your point, I'm like, Mark, why did we let this kid go? But yeah, I do think that he really is making a name for himself in New York, and he ultimately can become right up there with Babe Ruth, especially since they haven't won a championship since '73, I believe it was. And to be able to bring that back home to New York, that trophy, oh my goodness. I think that that would definitely solidify his name for sure.
So there is a high profile Mavs person and that I was texting back and forth with about
Mhm.
Bronson before Bronson even left Dallas, and this is when Bronson's dad was hired as a coach for the Knicks, and I text back to him. I said, "You see, I think Bronson's gonna go to New York because his dad is there. What are your thoughts on that?" And he was like, "This is not college, you know. Just because his dad there doesn't mean he's gonna leave Dallas and go to New York." And I said, "Okay, we'll see." So, lo and behold, his dad
Yeah.
got there, and here comes his son following behind. So
Yes.
I felt like he was going to leave regardless, man.
Yeah,
He already
man.
told you, like, you're not paying me. I'm giving you a discount. And now
Yeah,
look what he's. That's
yeah.
crazy.
But to that point, and this is just my opinion, I think we were so focused on Luca at that time, so focused just on that individual and not looking at that skill set around him that we maybe missed that or something. I don't know. Of course, that's just an assumption. But I'm like, man, I mean, I mean, can you imagine that duo together? Like you were saying about the European teams as the years went
Mhm.
along, that duo together could have just been extremely solid. But I do
Well,
hope
we
we
would have
don't
never
make.
seen the magic of Kyrie, though, if that would have been the case, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I get that. And I'm a Kyrie fan. I'm a Kyrie fan. But I will say, I hope we don't make the same mistakes with Cooper, right?
Mm,
Yes, Cooper's the man, but let's look at what's making Cooper Cooper, right? Cooper is a team player, which I love, right? The ball is moving. And I think that was like one of our biggest problems with Luca. But with Cooper, he doesn't mind moving that ball, which I think is absolutely exactly what we need. Now, if we could just fill in those little spaces,
mm.
those other little individuals that could come up, 2, 3 years, they stayed together and now they know, each other's game. I think the Mavericks can be right up there with these young teams like San Antonio, like Oklahoma City. And that's what we really truly need to get back up to that 1, 2, 3 seed is some young players who are hungry to play the game, not just sit on a paycheck. So
Yeah. And my final question for us, Bronson goes, if they had a do over, um, and say for instance you are Mark Cuban and you couldn't really see the future, would you still would have gave him what he pretty much wanted, the 55 million?
oh, Brunson. Oh, if I
Yeah.
couldn't see the future, is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Um, I like
So hard.
Bronson. Yeah, yeah, I liked his game back then. So for me, yes, I probably would have given him the 55 for sure. I thought he was worth it. I did, and I will say I didn't see anything else that we could have plugged in there that would have done, you know, anything more than, you know, what those expectations would have been, I guess.
Yeah. And I know me and you, Bob, talked about this before we got on camera. And Bronson did very well when Luca went out for that playoff series. Bob, if Bronson wins a title with New York, and I know Eric said, he might have to win two to even become the king of New York.
Mhm.
What would it take for Bronson to become the king of New York besides winning the title? Is there anything else you need to add to make it that a solidification?
Well, before I get to that, I want to tag in. There's a lot of Luca game and Jalen Brunson's game now
Mhm.
in the accelerate, decelerate,
Mhm.
pop, pull back. Uh, and two, that contract you're mentioning, he didn't. Jason Kidd didn't start him until January. He was coming off the bench. He wasn't getting the minutes, and he had an incredible run that took him to the Western Conference Finals. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
will he become the king of New York? Let me mention a couple guards that have played for the Knicks. I think Walt Frazier played for the Knicks, right?
Yes, he
Yeah.
did.
Stephon Marbury.
Yes, he
Yeah.
did.
I think Mark Jackson played a
Yeah.
year or two for the Knicks.
Yeah, I think he's like 2 years. Yeah, I wouldn't put him in that category, like as far as like a great guard.
Derek Harper played a couple years for him, took him to the finals. Rolanda Blackman took him to John Starks.
Mhm.
You know, so
Starks, yeah.
they've got a history of some pretty good, yeah.
You got to get that
If
ring.
John Starks hadn't shot him out of the gym, then they would have won because Harper played a heck of a game and that was with Ewing. My point is, there's a lot of historical guards. That's why I mentioned Frazier first. So Jalen Brunson will be the toast of the town until the guy you mentioned earlier wins a ring for the Yankees, and that's Aaron Judge.
Mm.
So
I thought he won a ring, no? Or he just got there?
Madison Square Garden and Knicks, a lot of history, but it doesn't compare to the Yankees.
Yeah.
The Yankees are like the Cowboys of football. You either love them or hate them. And it's like when the Yankees win, the best player, it gets all the accolades.
Mm-hmm.
So they can have a parade, be short-lived if the Yankees wind up winning the World Series, I think. But I'll tell you one guy who will be extremely, extremely happy if they win. That'd be Stephen A. Smith. Because I remember on draft night when they traded away a player and Stephen A. Smith's like, well, I don't know what the Knicks are doing. I'm going crazy. I don't know what you know, he's like throwing a temper fit, you know. And there's two things you can talk about Stephen A. Smith. When it comes to Knicks, he's going to be out of his ever-loving mind. And when he's talking about the Cowboys, it's going to be all kinds of hate spewed out. But if they win, I guarantee you Stephen A. Smith will be all over the airwaves going, I told you those Knicks were going to win.
Yeah. No doubt.
And I was going to say Mike Brown will probably be more happy to win it, if anything, because he's just showing that he's a great coach. And I don't know why Sacramento got rid of him. Didn't he win Coach of the Year? Come on, man. That's
along those lines. Mark Jackson was the coach that got him to play defense in Golden State. Steve Kerr comes along. Thibodeau got him to play defense. Mike Brown came along. So you got to give Tibbs some credit for the defense that New York's playing.
Yeah. Yeah, Tibbs a beast when it comes to really getting these guys to play to that level that they're playing now.
Now, here's the question I have for E. What will the perception be if Brunson wins a title before Luka, or if Brunson wins more titles than Luka?
Oh, this is just my opinion, guys. Don't beat me up. I honestly don't see Luka winning the title. I think it's going to be extremely difficult for Luka to win it. I like Luka, don't get me wrong, but I think it's going to be extremely difficult unless he's paired with the right personnel. So I can truly see Brunson win a title before he does, but I don't know if it would change the conversation in any sort of way. I think that those being one in the West, one in the East, I just don't even think they even tie those two together anymore. Anyone outside of the true Maverick fans doesn't even tie them together anymore. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I would love to see Luka get a ring, but it's going to be truly difficult for him.
I think it's quite ironic, you know. The Mavericks spent 6 first-round picks to build around Luka, and Brunson was a second-round pick. who signed a 4-year guaranteed contract, which allowed him to be the unrestricted free agent. First time a second-round player had signed that. I just think it's ironic. And people forget he was 2-time back-to-back NCAA College Player of the Year.
Yes, he was. Yes,
and
he
2
was.
titles with the Nova Knicks.
Yeah. So can I ask you a question? You guys a question to Brunson then? Do you think because his dad developed him throughout all those years and still basically his coach, do you think that plays a big part in the level of play that we're seeing out of Brunson right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 'cause
But there's one thing his dad couldn't teach him that when you watch him as a Maverick, you could see it. There's a dog in that guy.
Yeah.
You see some players that got a lot of skill, some guys that are flashy, and then you see players that they are just a dog.
Yeah.
And
it's quiet. It's a quiet dog, but it's a dog. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier, where he got hurt in the first quarter, went out, came back because he understood the stakes. That was that dog in him waking up, right? Got injured with his ankle, got up, went back down the court, played defense, right? And then comes out in the fourth quarter and drops in. I think he had 13 in the fourth quarter. I think that plays into exactly what you're saying, Bob. I think that's part of that dog in him.
So his dad instilled the skill and the mentality and the fight, probably that basketball IQ.
Yeah.
That dog mentality and fight, that you either born with it and you play with it or you don't.
Mm-hmm. And if I could just say one more thing, Mike, I know you probably want to go to another question, but with Brunson is that let's go back to what we were saying before. Yes, you win this year, great. And I think he understands the window, right? The teams right now, the gap between the teams right now is thinning, right? I don't think we're seeing.
Now, when you're saying teams, are you meaning East West or just in the East general?
Great point. Because I even think the East is now starting to close that gap a little bit. But even with the teams itself, the teams in the East, 1 through 5, 1 through 3, however you want to put it, the same thing in the West. That gap now, I think, is actually closing, right? And so to see a back-to-back again, I don't think is going to be it's going to be rare. It's not going to be as easy as it was years ago, where you would see teams like San Antonio go back-to-back, Golden State back-to-back, Chicago, so on and so forth, right? I just think it's going to be extremely difficult to do that because of the talent level and the way that these teams are actually structured. That's just a personal opinion.
Yeah, and I think with Bronson and I will tie this up in a great little bow. I do think he'll win about 2 championships, in my opinion. Hopefully they'll be back-to-back because that way he can get it out of his system. Because then with the structure of how the players are being paid nowadays, just astronomical figures, you can't really keep a good team around players nowadays unless you draft them. And then that draft got to be kind of like Oklahoma, and you'll have those players for a few years and you have an opportunity to win. But now looking at Oklahoma, now they had to face off against San Antonio, so they didn't have an opportunity to build on their legacy, but they're still a young team. So, Yep. So, and speaking of legacies, the Warriors was the last team in 2018 to go back-to-back when it comes to championships. And I just don't understand, and I know it has a lot to do with how salaries are structured nowadays, but I'm curious to understand your thoughts on it, Eric. There has not been a team, again, since the 2018 Golden State Warriors that been back-to-back when it comes to championship. What is the reasoning for that?
Sorry, I jumped on that, but yes, going back to what I just mentioned again, and it's really that these teams are structured as it relates to talent. It's becoming to where it's just a thin gap between those teams, right? And it really just depends upon the matchup, right? When they're going into, especially when you're playing a team, 7 games and you're a chess match. You got the right coaches, they figure it out, and they're right there with you. Yeah, you might have been the 6, 7 seed or whatnot, but they end up right there with you. But even if you're 1 through 3, 1 through 5, or whatnot, when you get down in those areas, you can basically almost kind of put those teams on the same level, and it really again becomes to that, whether watching the film, the coaching, so on, all the little parts that go into it. I just think it's extremely difficult to do the back to back like we would see in the previous years. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
So looking at the league now, and I know they've been really thinking about expanding it to some teams across the pond there in Europe, or basically somewhere in Europe. If they did that, will it even be more challenging for teams to win back to back, or maybe like we talked about earlier, how the European structure is really designed for teams to flourish more so there? And what if the championship, we can officially call it a world championship now, if that happens, will it be a possibility for a team in Europe to succeed and win multiple championships, Eric?
Is that to me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So here's my thinking on that, and my thinking can be way outside the box sometimes. My thinking on that is, I see these European teams, if it gets to where we expand, I see them so hungry to beat the US teams that I think they will give us a run for the money, if not beat us at some point in time. In that, and again, and that's because yes, their talent level is coming up. They love basketball almost just as much as we do now. They're watching it just as much as we are. They're out there playing it just as much as we are right now. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, is they invest in that training, right? They focus on the training. With that, I think comes to what Bob was talking about earlier, and that is going back into that basketball IQ. I think they emphasize that a little bit more as well than we do over here. Over here, it's all about what Bob was talking about, the dunking, the showboat, and all that kind of stuff. But again, when you have those smart players on the court, I guarantee you at some point in time that tide is going to turn, and those smart players are just going to end up with that W in the end. So yes, I do think that ultimately, if we expand at some point in time, that European team is going to be the US team. I'm sure I'm probably going to get tomatoes thrown at me, but it's just my thought.
Gotcha. Boogie Bob, like again, the Golden State Warriors 2018 was the last NBA team to win back-to-back championships, and we just kind of discussed if the Europe, if we expanded to Europe as far as the league. But what is your thoughts on why teams have not been able to sustain back-to-back championships? And I thought Denver had the closest opportunity to do it, but they couldn't pull it off. But give me your thoughts on it.
Well, it's a little bit of revisionist history here. Golden State, whether they planned it or not, the new CBA, the salary cap was here, and here. And for years, it just been like a gradual increase. But for some reason, 2016 or whatever, maybe 2015, they got the new collective bargaining agreement. They got the new TV agreement, and it just went up. Well, that allowed Golden State to sign Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant had played enough years in Oklahoma City that he was basically an unrestricted free agent. And that Golden State team was down 3-1 to that Oklahoma City Thunder team with Westbrook and Harden and Ibaka and Kendrick Perkins. So it's revisionist history, but it was an anomaly because in today's NBA, they realize you can't have a jump when they get a new TV contract. But if you notice now, it's a gradual increase every year so that one team can't go snatch another superstar. You had Andre Iguodala, who was on a big contract. You had Stephen Curry was getting one of the few contracts. Draymond Green. You already Klay Thompson. They were all young, big contracts, and you're adding a top 5 player in the league young because the salary cap took a jump. That's not going to happen again. So the new CBA created this animal called parity, and they didn't. The ratings, they played Cleveland 4 years in a row. Ratings started suffering, and there's one thing that the NBA is great at: marketing and revenue. And when the revenue or ratings start going down, they know the next TV contract's not going to be good. So they're like, we can't have Cleveland and Golden State play again. If it's the Lakers and Boston, they'd be ecstatic because that tunes in viewers, even if you hate both teams. But it created in the new CBA this dynamic of you always had a salary cap, but you didn't have a first apron and a second apron. And you always had well, not always, but they added a luxury tax about a decade and a half ago. But now with the first and second apron, you can't stash and pay a lot of players and just pay the luxury tax. Because when Golden State got the new arena, they're like, we don't care if we have to pay $400 million in luxury tax. We'll just go out and get another player. Well, the latest CBA has made it such that you can't build a dynasty. Mm-hmm. And it's leveled the playing field. It's no longer big market versus small market. It's how many Oklahoma City's going to run into this. They have also a plethora of first round picks. They don't have roster spots. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have guys like Jared McCain and Lou Dort and one of the Jalen Williams possibly get cut or traded because unless you go buy a superstar, they're talking about spending a lot of those, like 16, 18 first round picks. And, like however many Milwaukee wants, they're like, okay, we'll give them to you and we'll give you this player and we'll exchange this out. Well, the aprons really lock you in to 1 or 2 years to where you have a very small window to win now. You don't have the big window. Think about the Lakers teams. You have Michael Cooper, Kareem Abdul, Magic Johnson, James Worthy, Klay Thompson's dad, Michael Thompson. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had the Celtics were loaded. Mm-hmm. Even the Bulls of the 90s were loaded. You in the max and super max contracts, you because of the rules, you can't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons Mark Cuban said, it was an old team, and he goes, you hadn't studied the CBA. He's basically saying, I can't afford to pay all these. We won one ring and we snuck through a window, and everybody's like, but you let so-and-so go and so-and-so go. Well, there were like 6 or 7 free agents. It's like the Cowboys of the 90s ran into this when free agency hit. They couldn't sign everybody, and all the other teams want your best players. So I think the parity and the reason you've had 8 different winners over this period is because the collective bargaining agreement has tilted that so that you now have an even playing field. Mm-hmm. And if I'm an owner and I'm paying $4, $5, $10 billion for a franchise, I want the opportunity to be able to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good point.
An amazing point. Again, I feel like if there's going to be one team that can do it, and I don't think it will be the Knicks, in my opinion. I really think it would be the Spurs. I think if the Spurs win to this year, next year they're going to do it again. They're going to be so much more better. And the coach that they got, that's a very good coach.
No doubt.
Yeah, and I can't take away from Mike Brown either. Mike doing his job. So.
Yeah. But Popovich is still right there, even though of course he's out, but he's still part of that, a key part of that team, which I mean that hands down is a big, part of just that whole winning atmosphere, just his presence being around that team. So
where would the Mavericks be if Nelly was still kind of around like Popovich had been around?
I don't know. I don't know if it's the same feel, but
Yeah, 'cause I wasn't really a fan of Nelly. You know what I mean? I
me
don't know why I didn't like him. I just
either.
really didn't like him.
He was a weird scientist, but he knew talents. My point. That
I think his
longevity of
son more
Popovich.
so was the talent. I think Donnie Nelson was the talent guy because he got all those people in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, what a great show. I appreciate you, Eric, man. Thank you for jumping on.
Yeah, absolutely, guys.
Always. So let's close it out. Eric, tell the people where they can find you at on these social media street, man. So if they want to just give you a shout out and tell you they heard the show, give them people your handles, man, so they can catch up.
Yeah. So, I honestly try to stay off social media as much as possible. I know that sounds strange, but not really a huge social media guy. But my handle, I think, is ECF70 for Instagram or whatnot. But I will say this, just for a little plug, is I do have this platform coming out. And the reason why I want to go ahead and say this is because we talk about these students, these kids who are actually coming up. Only a small percentage of them is going to make it to the NBA, right? And so what I'm seeing more and more is room for mentoring these kids and coaching these kids up through these things that we're experiencing in life right now, right? The world has changed, and so I'm coming out with this platform right now. But it's basically about the launch right now. We're just kind of going through some final things, but it's all around mentoring and coaching. But it's basically modernizing it to where there's built-in resources and things like that. It's really, really cool. There's some AI functionality in it, so on and so forth. So let's keep these kids on the right track, especially like I said, it's only going to be a small percentage of them to make it to the NBA. So let's make sure we're there for these kids as they're coming up through the ranks. So.
Absolutely. And then once you get that done and ready to go, we'll actually post it on our YouTube channel so that way people can go in and check the links and get there.
Yes, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Eric, for coming on.
Yes.
Boogie Bob, tell these people where they can find you on these social media streets, man. Give everybody your handles.
Swish for real.
I love it. I love it.
And I've got some stuff down here on Boogie Bob. I post a lot of shorts. And when I posted last year the schedule for the NBA Finals, it got a lot of viewership in the Philippines. So if you want to know the schedule for the Knicks versus the Spurs, just go down and look at Boogie Bob on YouTube, and you'll see a posting there, and it's got all the games listed, what times, what channels.
Gotcha.
And thank you, E, for coming on, taking us to the next level.
I'm not sure about that, but I appreciate you guys having me. I really do.
Absolutely. And guys, you can always find me here on Swish for Real all the time. And if you want to see some of my films, just look Mikkel.poet.director, and I'm on just about every social media platform and working on my next film. We still got a few more scenes to go, so hopefully we can get those done. Podcast here, you can always check us out, man. So we are just ruining the movie, man. Thanks again, guys. Swish for Real, baby. We are out. Peace.
Take care, guys.
That's it, Pring.